Okay, good evening and a warm welcome to all the parents and guests present here for this very special session of Mitra for Life's Thursday Tea Time Chats. So we strongly believe in the community coming together and we would love for you to be a part of our community. Do look us up on mitraforlife.org for more details. It is now my pleasure to introduce this evening's special guests, Ms. Shayantini Sinha and Dr. Rex Joseph. Ms. Shayantini Sinha holds a fellowship diploma in psycho-oncology and a master's degree in applied psychology from the Indian Institute of Psychology and Research, apart from a diploma in clinical and experimental hypnosis. She is also the director of online education at Mindstream Wellness. Ms. Shayantini has expertise in child and adolescent problems, stress management, ABA therapy, de-addiction counseling, and other psychological diagnosis for adults and children. And Ms. Shayantini is not new to the Mitra family. She has been a part of our workshops in the past, and we look forward to collaborating further. A very warm welcome to you, Shayantini.
Thank you so much.
I'd now like to introduce also Dr. Rex Joseph. He, of course, will be joining us a little later part of the presentation. So Dr. Rex is a PhD in applied psychology from Pondicherry University and has a postgraduate diploma in theater arts. And he's one of the few propagators of animal-assisted interventions in India, hoping to spread its importance and efficacy in mental health. Dr. Rex is undertaking animal-assisted interventions with his two canine co-therapists, Thor and Loki. Thor, a golden retriever, specializes in working with children, whereas Loki, a beagle, specializes in general consultations. He hopes to play a significant role in bridging the disparity in the mental health resources to the country and building a more mentally and emotionally aware space, where one filled with lots and lots of dogs. He's also authored a book, Expectancy Violation in Dogs, a study using visual and auditory stimuli. Ms. Shayantini and her organization have been collaborating with Dr. Rex to promote this fairly new and recent therapy. So we look forward to hearing more on that from the two of you. Over to you now, Shayantini.
Thank you so much, Samyukta, for that wonderful introduction of yours. And I'm really humbled, and I feel really, I really would like to thank Mitra for giving me this wonderful platform to come up with these new concepts of, utilizing animal-assisted therapy or play therapy. Or however, like I've conducted sessions before on play therapy, which was not much practiced among children with autism. But now I think because of this lockdown, a lot of parents, they've started connecting with children majorly through play at home. So that has definitely brought about a lot of differences in the way they communicate, the way they emotionally regulate. I never think that they have any disability. I always feel that they have a different capability of learning things, understanding things in their own way. And that's very special and that's very different. And that's exactly how it makes them different from us. They are no less than us. It's just that their way of comprehending the society, the world around us is different. The real world in front of them through the ways they want to see it or view it. So that's how I feel they are never disabled, but they are more enabled, just that they learn differently. When we talk about animal-assisted therapy in special needs, I have been trained by Ms. Tasneem Hegre, who's a BCBA certified ABA therapist in Bangalore. I've been trained under her, and I have taken my training in ABA from her. And when I started working with her, and I learned a lot of things about ABA. I understood that natural environment training plays a very important role. When you say natural environment training, when you teach a child something on a tabletop or in a very, very traditional setup, for example, if I'm sitting here, if my child is sitting here, and if I make use of the table or the room or books and objects around. I impart that learning in this very closed environment with certain uh, objects that I have introduced them to them, and they have picked up the concept of learning from there. But when you take this learning to a real life situation, which is called natural environment training, then you understand what you've taught, how much can the child implement that in real life. And that becomes very, very evident when you teach children with pets, when you teach them in the natural environment where you have trees, and you teach them in an environment which is very close to nature, right? Very, very true. So we are all social beings. We interact with human beings around us, we interact with the nature, we interact with non-human beings also, like animals, right? So when you cut down on that interaction level and you are restricting a child in a 3 room, 5 room, or a one bungalow house, however how many rooms you have, you're still restricting the child in that closed environment. He's not going out, she's not going out, not interacting. And that definitely, we're all social beings, so social skills, as we all know, is a very important aspect of every child developmental milestones. That definitely gets jeopardized, and that is often compromised. I have got a lot of referrals in the recent past, I would say, where the child was all good, developmental milestones were, being reached on time. It was very, very, the child was very communicative, but suddenly, within a span of 1.5 months, this child stopped giving eye contact. The child was not interacting, was not responding to commands. So that's when they started. Getting into more of social interaction, letting the child play, though definitely maintaining a lot of protocols. But then even when they allowed the child to play with the other kids or allowed them to mingle, that's then they understood that yes, these were certain skills which were not being expressed properly. But once they started interacting, that definitely came up. So exactly why Dr. Rex, who is one of the pioneers of animal assisted therapy, he has come up with this beautiful therapeutic model of application of animal assisted therapy in children with special needs. And the results have been tremendous. There have been a lot of organizations in abroad, US, Canada, UK, namely, who have been using this therapeutic module extensively. And they've been getting tremendous results. There are schools who have special needs children going there and seeking animal assisted therapy. Learning through animal assisted therapy. And they definitely did show a lot of benefits, we have some schools, if you could definitely, if you go onto the net, you would be able to find out some. The effects are beautiful. So before I get into the effects, I would definitely like to show one video of Dr. Rex and how he has implemented this therapy not only in special needs but also among other individuals who have been diagnosed with depression or anxiety or other mental disorders.
When you see Thor happily greet you, it would be difficult to believe he is seeing you for the first time. But that is how he is with everyone. Warm, welcoming and friendly. This 11-month-old golden retriever is a trained therapy dog, one that would assist psychologists while they take their sessions. Along with his companion Loki, a beagle, Thor is said to have made sessions easier, making clients more comfortable and receptive to the therapy given.
Interacting with animals in general is a therapeutic influence. Anybody who's interacted with a dog So if you have a pet dog at home, you know what it is. You know how therapeutic it is. Even when you're feeling low, when you're not feeling so good, you go sit with your dog. So that's how I also started. I thought of this venture because of the kind of help that my older dog gave me, and me and my mom when my dad passed away. Initially, when somebody comes in for animal assisted therapy, I kind of test how much they're comfortable with dogs, alright? And because I've got two of them, there's Thor and Loki. Now, Thor is a therapy dog who is specially trained to work with special needs kids, meaning he's very, very calm. So he's so calm to the extent that you put your hand inside his mouth, he'll not bite you. Right? Loki is slowly getting there.
Clients who attend these therapies are often seen taking the dogs out for a walk, brushing them, or simply petting them. All the while, Thor is calm, until a rapport is built between the two, which then transfers to the handler of the dog, the psychologist. Tanuja lost her dad recently, a loss she hasn't been able to deal with yet. She recalls how she had frequent emotional outbursts until her mother asked her to consult a psychiatrist.
The doctor spoke to me everything, and he said me that you are into depression, and I just couldn't take that. Even still I am fighting depression. It's not a small thing which just goes away quickly. And then when there was nobody in my life, I think my dogs have always been there for me. And there was a situation where every single day I think it's time that I should end my life. I don't think so. It is worth of me staying in this life. I don't deserve to be here and all, I feel. But then when I think about that, the second thought that comes to my mind is, what about the dogs? Okay, if you're not there, what happens to the baby? What happens to Zero, the Cookie, and the street dogs? Who will feed them? And what will happen to them? They will always think that you'll come back.
Thor and Loki, along with their friend Hope, have also visited corporate companies to help them relieve the pandemic-induced stress levels. Activity sessions that got people in the room who otherwise conversed only over emails bond with each other over these canine friends.
We had the opportunity to make face shields and a lot of COVID-related products. For that reason, we were working throughout the phase. And the result of working with doctors at such a everyday level obviously transfers not a lot of it, but some of their effort and some of their struggle and pressure onto our teammates. But it wasn't something that which was actively talked about in the past. I mean, it's only now that people are mentioning mental health actively, but it's like something that people don't want to talk about otherwise. And therapy, in my mind and in most people's head, is always two people sitting in a room, one person on the couch, another person discussing very serious issues. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Studies have shown these four-legged friends provide psychological support in many cases. Spending time with them has helped many sail through difficult times when they truly become a human's best friend.
Was what Dr. Rex Joseph does, and this is how we spoke over a call, and then we decided this is something which is very much needed. It's the call of the hour, because now if you see, all of us, we are in some kind of distress, and I can definitely feel that when you have special kids with you, your work, your responsibilities, your household chores, and also at the same time taking care of them when they are not having full-fledged therapy in various centers or school, it becomes quite overwhelming. I have a very, very small presentation, majorly because of I just want to talk more about it. When we talk about this collaboration, first time in India, nobody before us have actually thought about animal assisted therapy in special needs. So that's when Dr. Rex's collaboration, Dr. Rex's organization, the Dockside, which is based in Bangalore, and Mindstream Wellness, which is in association with Malabar Institute of Mental Health and Neuroscience, have collaborated together to launch this beautiful program and to make it reach out to maximum parents in and around India. When we get into animal assisted therapy, the first and foremost thing that comes into our mind is natural environment training, which we call it as NET training. Some of you who definitely take ABA therapy would understand how net training is all about. Net training is basically, as I was telling you, whatever you teach the child on the tabletop, when you take that learning in a very naturalistic environment, the transfer of learning becomes evident. So in a natural environment, you would definitely not use the same items that you have otherwise taught the child. You would definitely use a much more different or more naturalistic object, to be precise. For example, if you have taught the child uh, fruits, okay, so fruits using different pictures or flashcards or probably small fruit models. When you are taking the child in a natural environment, you are definitely going to use real fruits, right? So when you teach the child about counting, a lot of pre-academic skills are often which children are quite fussy about. They don't want to sit and learn, they don't want to count and put. We have a lot of challenges like this where, you know, the academic skills, the pre-academic skills like counting, learning, identifying becomes quite difficult. These challenges can be very, very well achieved in a natural environment where you have pets, right? Another very important thing is pairing becomes a very, very important factor when you are taking any kind of therapy, right? We face this quite a lot because sometimes it definitely does happen that some days, every day is like, you know, a fresh day, and every session is like a fresh session. You cannot compare your today's session with previously well performed or poorly performed sessions. Every day is a new chapter. So it can be so that when you have a session, the pairing did not go well, the child did not connect to you quite well, or a lot of times parents come up and tell us that, ma'am, she's doing all this stuff very well with me, but however when her father sits with the same the same learning skills, it just doesn't happen, right? So I think my video is off. 1 second, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. So when you talk about pairing becomes a very important role. The way you talk, the way you move your hand, your body, your eyes, the way you dress up, the way your pitch is, your voice, the pitch, the quality of your tone, it's very important. But when you have a four-legged animal coming and taking the, you know, being a part of your session, that kind of breaks that ice, that helps in breaking the ice. The child connects a lot better. A lot of research studies have said, even in real sessions, I think when Dr. Joseph joins in, he'll be able to say that when you have a therapist, you have a lot of inhibition because he or she is a human being, and how he would react in the first, you know, conversation, and how would you open the session, and you'd be conscious, the child would be conscious. But the moment you have an animal stepping into the session, oftentimes that ice breaks and you are able to pair or connect with your client or your child much, much better. So be it parents, be it the therapists, they often find pairing a very challenging aspect of therapy. So this definitely helps them to overcome this challenge, and they connect with the environment. So when you are talking about having a particular behavior which can be stimming, which definitely can be stress induced sometimes. I've often seen clients who've been, you know, attending school and then therapy and speech therapy and then ABA therapy, and they've got a very long day, and by the time they come to my session, the behaviors have gone up quite a lot. And then definitely we do have interventions in place, but Dr. Rex always says that whenever you have an canine assisting you in the therapy, your implementation of the therapeutic techniques become a lot more easier because they actually bridge that gap and they help you connect. So the benefits of animal assisted therapy is profound. It's huge, and we're just exploring. And as I said, that there's a very traditional mode or modality of treatment. Again, not every ABA therapist works on net training, but the center from where I got trained, and Ms. Tasneem and all of us, we've got trained under her, she emphasized a lot on net training, because whenever a child is put in a real world, uh, you would know how he or she would react to the consequences of the incidents which is happening, and how would they work on their higher cognitive skills like planning, decision making. So if I try and push the dog, and the dog runs away, or if the dog is peeing at a particular corner, I believe children learn a lot through observation and internalization. They definitely pick up these skills. They definitely, a very, very strong concept is made easy the moment they see their pets or the animals moving around, and the flow happens very smooth, right? So the connect, which is very important in understanding and learning, happens beautifully. Oftentimes, we've seen that animal assisted therapy helps in pre academic skills. For example, counting, right? You don't know how many, you can always start with, counting how many dogs are there, or how many legs does the dog have, body parts. A lot of times children, they don't know what is a nose, what's a ear, what's an eye. So you definitely teach them what's a human eye, human ear, human nose. But when you generalize that concept into anything's ears, nose, or leg, or whatever the features, right? The generalization concept happens beautifully when you have these things around, right? A lot of times it has been seen that children setting, they do a lot of role plays, setting up a fish tank and all of that. But what if they're really made to kind of put pebbles and then make a fish tank, they put water and then they put the fishes in, and then the fishes move around and they touch the water. That connect, when we talk about sensory play, when children get very overwhelmed and they get very very exhausted, they're having some kind of behavior problems, or any kind of emotional meltdowns, we often tell them, why don't you try sensory play? That would definitely help the child to calm down. So just imagine if you are engaging your child into you know um, what do you call water play, and instead of that water play, you really have an actual fish tank where you let the child play with the fish. You let the child dip their hand in the the water, obviously under your supervision, and you definitely can't keep big fishes, or the harmful fishes. Definitely, there are certain fishes which are quite friendly, or small fishes which the child will not be able to catch, but then they definitely be able to understand a lot of movements, cause and effect. This would definitely also help them to calm themselves down. So the therapeutic benefits are definitely quite a lot of times. Children, otherwise, I think Dr. Rex would be able to again say a lot better on this. Children, they don't give eye contact, no matter how many times you teach them, you make them understand the concept, or you generalize the concept, they just don't give you eye contact, right? When they sit with an animal, automatically that barrier breaks, because they look at the animal, how is the animal kind of looking, where is the animal going, and especially with Thor, definitely when you have a calm dog like that, when the children connect, they definitely would want to make eye contact and want to get into that mode of interaction with Thor. A lot of times emotional regulation, as I said, it's very, very therapeutic. Just to imagine yourself, if some of you have pets at home, when you are kind of feeling a little low, when you go and sit with your pet, you feel quite active. Or the moment you're kind of sitting and you're kind of sulking, your pet just comes and sits on your lap or sits next to you and looks at you, and you're like, oh my god, don't give me that puppy look, and then you cuddle the dog and all of that, right? That definitely helps you to regulate your emotion, makes you feel good, and definitely helps you to calm down also. Similarly, just think, when children do that, they laugh, they run around them, they play with them, they connect. So a lot of gaps of social skill get fulfilled when you engage children into therapy through animal assisted therapy. You can actually work on a lot different concepts or a lot different problematic areas when you involve pets. Now, when you talk about pets, so now you would be like, yeah, so we can just go and get a fish tank, or we can just go and get a dog, or we can go and get a cat, or we can go get a rabbit. No, there are certain protocols which needs to be followed. There are certain breeds of dog which can be trusted with special needs. Obviously, you cannot have a Doberman or a pit bull. I mean, no offense, you can definitely, but you need a lot more training. But there are certain breeds which are quite, what do you call, they connect with children quite well, right? So you've seen Dr. Rex. He has a golden retriever and beagle. He's also got a Siberian husky, the one who's in training now. So there has to be a lot of training prerequisites that he needs to. You need to follow when you are making your dog or your pet, whichever pet it is, as a therapist. Even if it's a fish, that also needs to be trained, or you need to take care of that, because you are definitely including that into your therapy session, right? So there are a lot of things which I'll just give it over to Dr. Rex. He can definitely talk over that. And oftentimes it is seen that a lot of times children have a lot of behavior management as behavioral issues, a lot of emotional meltdowns. They feel stressed, exhausted, just like how a sensory room would provide them therapeutic benefits to help them calm themselves down. Much the same way, animal assisted therapy shows similar benefits when children do spend a lot of time with them. So that's all about the benefits and about the what and how it all comes into. I would pass it on to Dr. Rex.
Start by apologizing for walking around during this session, because even at the moment I am in the process of training. So I do training sessions also with dogs. So from the time I started with animal assisted therapy, it was not just the animal assisted therapy part. It was also about, working with canines and training them, etc., etc. So I'll just give you a brief about myself. So like I think you already would have got the introduction, but yeah, I'm Rex. I've been wanting to start something like this since quite some time ago. And the reason is as simple as something that happened in my own life. So a couple of years ago, not a couple of years ago, in 2017, my dad passed away. And my dad and mom were married for over 40 years. I am the only son. So it was a very difficult time for us. And that's when our first dog came into our life, Leo. I mean, right now, I would say that my mother considers him a son, more a son than me, because they are together all the time. So yeah, like I said, that was the time when I wanted to start off something with animal assisted therapy. But the entire field of animal assisted therapy in India as of now is not fully organized. It's not fully structured. And most of the places which offer animal assisted therapy as of now, what they actually offer is not animal assisted therapy, but rather something I would call pet therapy or animal assisted activity. Right? So the only thing that's being done currently in most is that, kids can come or adults can come, they can interact with the pet, but that's about it. Right? That's, of course, I'm not saying that's not therapeutic, because as soon as you start interacting with a dog and you like interacting with dogs, there are a few things that happen in your brain. One is your oxytocin level goes up. Right? That's start interacting with the dog. Your endorphin levels go up. Endorphins are basically what you get when a hug, or you really want a hug. That's what endorphins are. Oxytocins are.
Doctor.
Yeah. So, like I was saying, when you start interacting with the dog, now I will be talking specifically about canine assisted therapy because that's what I work with. So, when you start interacting with the dog, like I was saying, oxytocin goes up. Oxytocin is the hormone which activates when a mother starts interacting with her kid. Right? Then your endorphins go up. Endorphins are those
neurotransmitters which get released when you get a hug from someone, right? Your cortisol level goes down. Now, cortisol is what increases and decreases your stress level. So these three chemical changes do happen in your brain as soon as you start interacting with a canine, right? And also your heart rate. If you have an elevated heart rate, as soon as you start interacting with a pet, or mostly a canine, your heart rate also comes down to normal, right? The elevated heart rate comes down. So these four are established things when it comes to interacting with the canine. Now, in most places, when I was saying that what they offer is pet therapy or animal assisted activity, what I mean is, they let people come and interact with the pets. Of course, they have to be trained, but that's about it. These four things happen without any other therapy. All right, you don't have to specifically do any other therapy. It happens. But what we do, or the dog side does, is conduct actual animal assisted therapy. We do also animal assisted psychotherapy, where of course it's just coming up. So it's not that we've had a lot of clients, especially with the pandemic going on and everything. But in animal assisted therapy, what I do in animal assisted psychotherapy, what I do is make sure that these four effects, or these four main effects of a canine, is used in my therapy session. Let's say I want to build rapport with someone. I want to build a better trust relationship with someone. Or if I have a client who's about to break down and then I know that the session itself might stop, interacting with them, they have a breakdown because their stress levels are going up, their heart rate is going up, and they kind of shut down. So the canines who are present there will immediately counter the effects, and they don't have to specifically do anything. Most of the time, therapy dogs do their work just by being there. Right? They're right next to the client. They're playing around with the client. They let the client take them for a walk. The client can brush them, give them treats. Only those are the activities which we do. Now, I've also have a tie-up with a couple of special needs or special schools. They're not necessarily special schools, but rather pediatric centers, the ones, because special schools and all are not running right now. But we've had a couple of sessions with the kids over there, and we've found that what happens is, so I'll give you the best example. Best thing I can do is give you the example of what happened on the first day where I had a session with one of these schools. So what I did was, morning we started off with a half an hour, 40-minute group activity where the kids, we were giving them some play, some activities, some games to play, etc., etc. And we tried involving Thor and Loki. Those are my therapy dogs. We tried involving the boys as much as possible in the therapy session. What happened is, after this half an hour, 40-minute activity, they had a snack break. They had to go for their tea and snacks. The facilitators there, they came and told me after the snack break that this was the first time in a very long time where the students just came in, sat on their benches, had their tea and snacks, and came back out. Right? Because they wanted to interact with the therapy dogs. They wanted to play with them. So what we did after that is we started having individual sessions with the kids. But again, I am not certified, or I am not licensed to work with special needs children. I'm not RCI recognized to work with special needs children. So what we do is, I involve either a special educator or a speech therapist or a vocational therapist or somebody who is licensed to work with special needs children, and then make sure that while they provide their specific therapy, they also get to reap the benefits of animal assisted therapy. All right. So what I'm saying is, see, a child who comes in for therapy might be a little bit anxious, and animal assisted therapy is proven to improve mostly communication and socialization skills. Reason is simple. If you're not communicating enough, you're not socializing well. And if you cannot communicate enough, you cannot socialize well enough. And a lot of times what I've personally seen is a lot of special needs children have trouble communicating because they have this constant fear of being judged also. Right? Because of course, in different places, they might have been seen as different. They might not be interacting with the normal kids. So that fear of being judged either by their peers or by adults, whoever interacts with them, leads to some kind of an inhibition where they don't really try to interact. And when they don't try to interact, that in turn affects the socialization of the kid as well. So what happens when you try animal assisted therapy is sometimes you find these kids talking to the dogs, right? Or sometimes we give them a reading activity. They just have to take any book, a story book or something, right? If they have inhibitions to reading this out to let's say an adult or a peer because they don't know whether they'll make mistakes or something, we encourage them to read the books to the dogs, right? So there's no factor, there's no judgment happening there. The dogs are going to calmly sit and listen as long as the kid is reading, right? And for them, they don't really differentiate between this is a dog and that is a person. That differentiation doesn't happen. What happens is over a period of time, they build enough confidence that they can go read in front of other people as well. And they can communicate, they can talk with other people as well. All right. So what happens here is kind of a transference. The relationship that they build with the therapy dog is transferred to the handler. So every therapy dog has a handler. For Thor and Loki, I'm the primary handler. Right. So they, of course, communicate with me. Initially, they might not even want to communicate with me, but they start communicating with me because they want to know whether they can take the dog for a walk. They want to know whether, they can play around with the dog, etc., etc. And once that happens, the relationship with me, once it improves, that translates into a better relationship with the therapist also. Right, be it a speech therapist, a vocational therapist, a special educator, whoever is working with them. And we keep them engaged during the entire session, not actively engaged playing with the dogs, but rather, the dogs are around all the time. So at any point, if the child feels some kind of inhibition or, the child feels a bit anxious or a bit nervous, the presence of these guys immediately change the kids. They're like, okay, I mean, even if you see that they are kind of backing out from the therapy or they're not responding well to the therapy, all we've got to do is tell them, come, we play for 5 minutes, and then they're back on track. All right? Because unconsciously, again, their oxytocin levels, endorphin levels are going up. Whatever anxiety they have, their cortisol levels are coming down. Elevated heart rate is again coming down because all these things happen. A 2-minute, 3-minute interaction with the therapy dogs in between the session is going to reduce all the panic and all the anxiety that they have. That's how it works with special needs children. And with adults also, it's a similar thing. With adults also, see, I'm a psychologist. So when I do my counseling sessions and things like that, when somebody comes in for a psychotherapy session, most of the time they don't know what to say or what to do. And they just come sit there. They're like, where do I start? What do I tell this guy? Because I'm a total stranger for the person, especially during the first session. Right? There also the present level that they and makes them happy because of the oxytocin and endorphin. And therefore they start communicating. The same thing happens with children as well. When they come in for a session, they might be anxious because you're taking them to a completely new place, a completely new person who might have to work with this child for a long period of time. So that initial anxiety, if it goes off, and it's not like you're injecting something or you're giving a pill or something for the anxiety to go down, but rather it's just the presence of these guys which make it different. Right? And if you look up studies, I can quote multiple studies done, especially it's mostly in the US and in the UK, where they've seen that, therapy dogs have helped improve a lot of communication, socialization skills in special needs children. Especially, I prefer to work a lot with them because I've got the opportunity to work with them.
There are a few questions in the chat box, Doctor. So can we go through that and maybe you could? I think a lot of it.
I think I'll do one thing. I'll switch off the video.
Okay, you're going to switch.
I'll switch off my video. That'll make it better.
Okay, sure, Doctor.
And I think that will make it better with the network connection thing.
Right. So one question that I had, Doctor, is a lot of parents.
Can you guys see
now? Yeah, you're audible.
All right, great.
Okay. One question I had, Doctor, is a lot of parents who are with us today, and they already have pets at home. So. Right. Do they have to be trained professionally at your center to actually reap the benefits of animal assisted intervention, or since or because they already have pets at home, it's already helping them?
Right, see what when you have a pet at home, it's obviously already helping you. As long as the pet is not disturbing you a lot, as long as the pet is not jumping on everyone and is remaining calm, it's of course helping you. Like the entire idea of a therapy dog training is also basically teaching them to remain as calm as possible. That's nothing else, right? Teaching them to remain as calm as possible in any given situation. Any situation they are taught to remain calm. So if you have a pet at home who is calm, right, by nature, who's got a decent, calm temperament that kids can work with, then it's absolutely fine. But the thing is, if okay, where am I based? I'm based in Bangalore. Uh, the thing is, when you work, I mean, you will see the difference when you actually see a therapy dog, right? Because there you will see how calm they are around kids, around adults, etc. But if this is happening at your house, if your own pet is remaining really calm and doesn't have that hyperactive nature, then it's absolutely fine. You're already reaping the benefits. But what happens is, like I said, that would be called animal assisted activity or pet therapy, right? When you're calling it animal assisted therapy, it's basically the therapy dog's effect combined with a therapist of some sort, right? So a therapist can be a psychologist, a special educator, social worker, anyone. A certified licensed therapist of some sort is what I mean, right? So that's what animal assisted therapy is. Otherwise, yes, of course, any person who has a pet at home is definitely reaping the benefits of having a pet at home.
Right, right. And I also read somewhere that, pets can even be trained to kind of avoid or prevent some sort of a emotional meltdown situation because they pick up signs of an anxiety or agitation beforehand. And they have these, you know, uh, signs calming procedures to immediately handle the child. So have you
See,
seen that happening, doctor?
that is mostly, rather than a therapy dog, that is what I would call a service dog, because a service dog is paired with each individual to identify the specific needs of that individual and work with that individual. So we even have service dogs which are trained to detect if a person has their sugar levels are going up or their sugar levels are going down, but that is paired with each individual. But what will happen with therapy dogs is, while you're interacting with the therapy dog, in case you have a mood fluctuation or you have an anxiety attack or something like that happens to you, then you will definitely calm down, because all those endorphins and oxytocins will start releasing again, right? So it naturally happens. So even if you know even if, for example, you having a very bad day, right? And you don't even have to interact with the pet. There are times when seeing the picture or seeing the video of a cute puppy or a kitten changes that day, right? You instantly feel better. So just imagine, if seeing a picture of a cute puppy can change that for you, what happens when you start interacting? See, the thing is, and it's a two-way street. It's not just a one-way street where the people feel good, because the dogs generally like to be cuddled and stay next to humans because they also have oxytocin and endorphin release when we interact with them. Right? So it's a mutual system. So they keep to us, we interact with them, everybody feels good.
Okay.
So yeah,
great.
That's how it happens.
We have questions like, how do we reach you for training the dog? We recently got dogs Ginger and Sandy. Son is 15 years, plays with them, who never liked the touch of anything. So is there a possibility of training the dog so that it helps their son? Let us know how we can reach. I'm sure this is a question that quite a few of the parents will have.
What I would suggest is probably, one day what you could possibly do is, if any of you are in Bangalore, because I'm based in Bangalore, if any of you are in Bangalore, I can give you the location, because we are kind of starting off a full-fledged center. We're in the process of starting one for animal assisted therapy. I can direct you as to where the center is, and probably on a Sunday or something, if you can come over, you can actually see how trained the guys are, the dogs are. And if you feel that your dog is doing the exact same thing, then there's no problem, right? But otherwise, if you want to put in some training and then make them calmer and things like that, we can work it out here. Even right now, I have a husky with me who is in the process of getting trained as a therapy dog. Right? I mean, she's an addition to my pack. So I'm kind of training her also to become a therapy dog. So what you can do is probably come over one day. We can organize something here at the venue where we do it, where you guys can come over with your kids and then you can see how it works. Like, we don't have a problem. I mean, we can literally do like a half-day program or something like that here, where you get to interact with them. The only thing is we'll have to plan in advance so that everything is sorted. But we can have a proper interaction with the therapy dogs here. We can show you how it works. You can yourself see how the kids would become better. Right? You can see how they are different from the dogs that are there at home or other dogs you would interact. And then if you want to train your dog as a therapy dog or something like that, we can work it out. That's absolutely fine.
Okay. And doctor, again, several of our parents may not even have a pet at home. So now,
Right.
after the session, if they're inspired to actually get one, are there specific breeds that they have to look out for, or any or it's open, they can choose any breed?
See, it all depends on the temperament of the dog. I would never say that. Of course, if you ask me, my personal favorite, I would always recommend a golden retriever, because Leo, the golden retriever, is the one who's changed my life and my mom's life. He's about 4 years old now, and Amma stays alone in Kerala and she doesn't want to come to Bangalore because he's there. Right? That's the kind of bond with them. And for my own engagement, she came down for 2 days, and before the reception was over, she went back to Kerala. Right? That's the kind of bond they share. Right? So personally, I would always recommend a golden retriever, because they have that very friendly, stable temperament, which is really good. Of course, you'll have to choose a good retriever, because not 100% of the retrievers are well behaved. So that's my person. But of course, see, any dog for that matter, if it has the right kind of temperament, you can train them to become a therapy dog. A lot of people who use Shih Tzus, there are a lot of people, even any breed. If you look up therapy dogs, I'm pretty sure in organizations like Canine Assisted Therapy in the US, I think they have almost every breed of dog that's out there as a therapy dog. Right? So it all depends on, because it's a process. It's a long process. And the training never stops. Right? We keep working with them. We keep assessing them. So that's how it works. So that's why I said because over a 20-25 minute session, it becomes really difficult to explain the entire thing. Of course, we have a workshop also on animal assisted therapy, with Sayanthini will be talking about. But otherwise, the best way to experience or figure out how this works is to experience it in person. Right? Come over, probably like a 2-3 hour session where the kids get to have fun, you get to see how it works, everything. And because I usually tell people, animal assisted therapy never works well virtually. There are people who do it, but you don't get the full effect if you do it virtually. Right? Because it's the same reason that you feel the effect only once you start interacting with it.
Right.
That's given. Right? So yeah, we can, of course, we do train them as well. We can work on any breed. The only thing is we'll have to put the dog through some kind of rigorous temperament testing. The age is a concern. All those things are a concern, right? Because I personally know a Rottweiler who is a therapy dog.
Okay.
I've worked with a Rottweiler who was a therapy dog. So yeah, there's no restriction. It's only the temperament restriction breed-wise. It's only the temperament of the dog which matters.
All right. And there's also a question about cats. If my special needs daughter visits them and plays with a cat, can it be beneficial? I'm sure
Definitely.
it is.
No, definitely. See, there are people who even use pythons and crocodiles as therapy animals.
Wow. Okay.
Right? It's not restricted to a therapy dog or a cat. Only thing is, see, what needs to happen is the animal has to be calm. Right? You can't have a cat who's hissing at you and expect that cat to be therapeutic for you. If the cat is calm, the cat allows you to pet the cat, of course it works then also. And it also depends on the individual as well. Right? An individual who's comfortable with dogs would not have a problem. But let's say they're not comfortable with dogs. We can't enforce canine assisted therapy on them. So it depends on the individual and the animal in question.
Right.
I'll just add something more to it.
Sure.
We have workshops with Dr. Rex coming up, especially for special need therapists and special mothers and parents. I mean, not mothers only, fathers also. So, special needs parents can also join the workshop, and special educators, speech language pathologists, they can also join. So, there, Dr. Rex would be talking about the benefits of animal assisted therapy with live demonstrations. We would be having Thor, Loki, and his new Siberian Husky also for the session. He would be showing live demonstrations, with children also, and also talk about the training. So it's a more of a demonstration based workshop. So all those who would be interested can definitely get in touch with me, and we can definitely take it forward. This is a virtual program as of now. For those parents who would not be able to come down to Bangalore, or probably watching from other part of the country, and they would want to get some insight. Or even now, also Bangalore is not in very great shape. So if some parents would want to avoid stepping out, but yet get the entire feel of it through the workshop, we have one for this weekend and also the following weekend. So
Okay.
you can definitely let us know.
So if you can share the details, the flyer with me, Shantini, I will
Sure,
share it
sure.
in our groups, and whoever is
Absolutely.
interested will reach out to you
And
directly.
I am also dropping my phone number in the
Okay.
chat box for anyone who wants to clarify things or something like that.
Yes.
So yeah, you can. I'm there on WhatsApp. You can call me. The only thing is, I also work as an assistant professor of psychology at CMR University. So during the daytimes, I'm there. Evenings, I'm here. So in case you call me and you don't get through, you can just drop me a message on WhatsApp, and I will get back to you. Any doubts regarding, how it's effective, you want to see papers and all that, we can. I mean, the articles that are there, the everything can be shared for whoever's interested. So yeah, feel free to contact.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Yeah.
This was really a wonderful session, because we have heard about it, but the US, Canada, and every outside India. But how much of that is actually works in our environment and surroundings was not known. So this is I think this is fantastic.
No, I think the only way this is gonna get known is when people, come for it. So, like, if you look at the past 1 year, what I've done is do multiple workshops, seminars, webinars, etc., to create awareness about the entire thing, right? Because I've seen first-hand effect, not only in my personal life, but with the kids that I've worked with, right? But when you tell people that this happens, they might not really understand what I'm talking about. But the second they come, so we have one parent uh, who used to be in the US, and they were a part of the school that we had a tie up with. So because of the pandemic and everything, we had to drop that, and we're waiting to resume when things are back open. These parents contacted me personally, and they come personally for sessions, right? They're like, they don't even want the therapist part. They're like, let's just do pet therapy, let's just do, they're like, let's do a psychologist animal assisted psychotherapy session. Right? That is something which I found great, because these guys, and of course these guys know how animal assisted therapy works in the US. So they just want to get that for their son here, and their son had a blast coming here, running around with, because the space that we have here is a 2-acre plot. It's already a pet boarding facility. It's a pet boarding facility where we are also going to start. So I also do dog training here, and we are also planning to start off with the animal assisted therapy venture here.
Okay, excellent. I mean, I'm sure everyone, most of the parents will be just curious and eager to understand more about it, Dr. and Shantini. So I'm sure they'll reach out to you. In fact, Shantini was mentioning that, so many children are very comfortable, in close encounters with the pet, but they stay away from human, stay home.
They are.
So I had a parent last week, and their son goes for horse riding, every week. And so she was saying that, my son normally stays away from, human faces, but he's this close with the horse, and I don't see him reacting to it at all. He's so
correct. Now, as a matter of fact, horses also have been found to be really effective. And maybe next 2-3 months, we are also planning to introduce a couple of ponies into our program.
Oh, wonderful.
That's in work because getting a pony, training the pony, everything is going to be a task. So probably either by late this year or early next year, we'll also have a couple of ponies in our.
Sure.
Dr. Rex, I had a question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the temperament of the dog before we purchase or get it. How do we test that? How do we know what the temperament is unless we bring it home?
See, what I see, one thing is if you're getting a pedigree dog, the parents of the dog, by taking a good look at the parents of the dog and how they behave, etc., because a lot of temperament is genetically passed on.
Okay.
So you will see that. So a good breeder should be able to tell you whether the pups are calm or something. And if you tell how would you choose a puppy, there is a specific set of things that you look for, which is again an extensive session by itself.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not a pet person, but recently my sister-in-law bought a pug.
Okay.
And then off late, she's complaining it's too hyper, and so.
No, that happens. So again, there are a few things that need to be looked at, and it also depends on the age of the dog. If it's a small puppy, like at 2 months old, see, a lot of behaviors would not be completely set, right? But see, what generally happens is, even if you look at places like US, where the therapy dog program is extensively used, even though they start training them young, there are times when they don't make it as a therapy dog later. Right? Because the actual behavior, personality of the dog and everything sets in by the time they're about 1 year, 14 months old. Right? Of course, a good trainer can work with new behaviors that come. We can give corrections, etc. Right? But hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So a good trainer can work with those things, but usually we say that their temperament or their behavior comes into a solid what you can expect for the rest of their life by the time they're about a year old, which is why we put them through a rigorous testing before identifying a pup, especially if you want to train that pup specifically as a therapy dog. So there's a list of things that we look at. If it's a dog, there's a complete temperament testing that we put them through. Before that, they do require a little bit of training. If it's a puppy, there are a few aspects of their behavior that we look at. So all depends on those things.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rex. We have come to the end of our session for today. So you can turn on your video now. I don't think we'll have. So over to you, Samyukta.
Yeah, thank you, Sujani. So on behalf of Mitra for Life and all the parents here this evening, I'd like to thank our guests, Dr. Rex and Ms. Shayantini, for giving us their valuable time. And it was really, really interesting and enlightening to learn about animal-assisted therapy. So thank you so much to both of you again. And before we sign off, I'd like to quickly summarize the work we do at Mitra for Life. We are a community working towards empowering children and young adults with special needs to be independent and help them integrate better in a social setup. So we have online parent forums such as this, panel discussions, we curate new experiences, have festival celebrations and more. So we recently introduced the Youth Club, which is online socials for youngsters, engaging with college volunteers. And we also have the Dads Club that meets every alternate Sunday. So please do go to mitraforlife.org to join us. I thank all the parents in the audience for attending today, and we look forward to seeing you again next Thursday in our Tea Time Chat. So thank you and have a good evening.